Good evening. This is the Walpole Zoning Board of Appeals. Tonight is Wednesday, February 5th. It is 7 PM. The first thing we're going to do tonight is have a vote on 9 Pinnacle, so if you want to recuse yourself, Judy.
Sure.
So this is for 9 Pinnacle Drive, case number 2411 and case number 2413. We closed this hearing last week. We've all had a chance to take a look at the draft decision. Does anybody have any questions on the draft decision?
Excuse me, Chairman. I raised a question about the coexistence of the 40B application and voting on and closing this hearing. I guess we're tentatively either approving or denying this application while there's still another one existing. Is that
That's correct.
accurate?
Yep.
Okay, so this project, even though we could potentially either approve it or deny it, this developer is still proceeding forward with keeping their 40B application open?
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and as we know, this isn't the final approval for this project. He has other projects to, other boards to go to for approval. So,
Yeah, I know, so I guess to further that discussion is just, I know I've heard a lot of the discussions from the neighborhood saying that they're in favor of what the applicants put in front of us at this time. But I would just advise that there still seems to be another application being out there. So it's really not decisive of the applicant to say, this is what I want to do and plan to do, and it's still keeping this going on in the background.
I guess I would just add to that, I mean, that's, I know when we had town council in, I believe, in August, when was it, when we kind of went over that, and it's legally, it's an odd area to be in, for sure. Usually, you know, it's one project over the other, but there's nothing preventing the applicant to do that. It's just, it's unusual. We haven't experienced anything like that, so.
Thank you.
yeah, okay. So on the case for 9 Pinnacle Drive, does somebody want to make a motion to approve the 40A case for 9 Pinnacle Drive, case number 2411 and 2413, with the conditions that we've already gone over?
Does anyone have any other conditions or any other comments?
No, I had mine about the slope and the, did you, last time, did you add in the bit about fencing on top of the, fencing on top of the retaining walls?
I didn't add that. I think when we talked about it, that was more of something that would have happened regardless. It's more of a building code issue.
Okay.
Do you want to go over
No.
the conditions? No.
We've all had a chance to go over them. That's the only one but we also, you are correct, last time we did talk about that would be included with the building inspector, that would have to be done. Does anybody have anything else?
I would just add that the conditions as set forth in this draft still have the number 3 and 4 need to be joined.
Sure, correct that. So in total, it should be 12 conditions.
Does anybody want to make a motion to the effect that I just described?
So moved.
Moved by Dave,
Second.
second by Mark. Any further discussion on Pinnacle 40A? Okay. Voting on this will be the 5 members that are here tonight, so. Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? So carried. Okay. Next, we have case number 25-1. This is, I'm sorry. We have case number 2211, Wall Street Development Corp. This is for the same piece of property, basically, 9 and 15 Pinnacle Drive, comprehensive permit under 40B, and Mr. Petrosi, do you want to continue that case?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we'd continue that, I'd say, for at least 60 days.
Do you have a date?
So, 2 months out, what is that?
Is that going to give you enough time to get your approvals on the others?
Well, I have no control over that, but we will file immediately with the Conservation Commission and then subsequently with the Planning Board. But I think the Conservation Commission is next on the list.
Is 60 days going to give you enough time to finish with the other boards if you're going to go before them?
Again, I don't have any control over the information that they're going to want or how they're going to review it, but I would hope that that's enough, but could be 60, 90 days. If we have to come back, we'll continue that 40B hearing
Okay,
further.
okay.
So I think it's April 2nd is our first meeting in April?
Yes,
Okay, April 2nd,
yes.
and an extension of time until
Probably.
end of May?
Yeah, that would be,
Sure?
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Does somebody want to make a motion to continue case number 2211 for the 40B at Pinnacle Drive until April 2nd, and with a continuation of time until, what's,
May 31st?
May 31st? Is that a weekday or?
Hold on, sorry. That's, you want to do May 30th? May
What?
30th is a Friday.
What's that?
May 30th is a Friday.
Okay. Till May 30th?
It's fine, thank you.
Okay. Does somebody want to make that motion?
So moved.
Moved by Dave,
Second.
second by Mark. All those in favor of continuing the case, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained, so carried. Okay. So that's Pinnacle Drive for tonight. And next, what we're going to do is, we have, under board business, we have the applicant for Moose Hill Road. People in the audience, are you here, what case are you here for?
25-1 Dupee.
Dupee? How about, is everybody here for Dupee? Okay. Hopefully this will not be, we'll get to Dupee, but we'll see how this goes, so. Okay, we're gonna take this is Moose Hill Road, and I believe Mr. Murphy, is that correct?
Yes, it is. Thank you, Mr. Lee.
Nice to see you again.
Thank you.
And since last time you were here, you've made some modifications to your plan, and do you want to go
Yes.
over that?
So we were here before you, and we took into consideration the candor and comments of the board, the preference for 8 units as opposed to 12. We thought that was, going along to get along is a good thing, and so we said, okay, we can put this project together as an 8-unit project, and there are just a small little changes from what was granted previously. First change is from homeownership to rental. The second change is the site, and there are some subcategories of the site change. One is the location of the duplexes. Second is the size of the road, as you can see in that revised site plan. And on the units themselves, there's elimination of garages. Hopefully, Patrick sent me some questions and some comments that would be beneficial for me to respond to, that probably emanated from staff review or maybe perhaps from some of the board members. So one of the questions was, what was the purpose, reasoning for moving location of the units? So by moving the units in this, you've shortened the roadway from approximately 400 feet to 200 feet. Substantial reduction in impervious area, and it also is certainly a cost saving to have a reduction in the road costs. Secondly, because you move the cul-de-sac up and shorten the road, you create an area for the septic system, and they can put in what they call a Presby system, which takes up approximately 40% less area than the system that was approved before. Under under the prior comprehensive permit, one of the specific conditions in the prior comprehensive permit was a recognition that the project, this is factual finding number 14 on page 3, the project involves private septic systems for each duplex building. Information provided indicates the systems can be designed to meet applicable design guidelines and requirement. The applicant is still required to seek review and approval by the Walpole Board of Health per the requirements of Title V. So we'll still have to get the Presby system approved by the Board of Health to make it go forward in this way. So that hopefully addresses the question about moving it and the impact of the septic system. I think I was incorrect in my sense of what was happening with the size of the units. The size of the units is actually shrinking. So the size of the units, when they were for sale units, were closer to about 2,200 square foot homes, and now they're shrinking to about 1,600 square foot homes, rental as opposed to for sale. On the number of bedrooms, we proposed 2 bedrooms throughout, and I would point out that there was a specific condition in the earlier granted approval. It's A3 on page 5, and it says the project shall consist of no more than 8 duplex-style owner-occupied dwelling units, of which 2 shall be affordable as defined by the subsidizing agency in perpetuity. All dwelling units shall consist of no more than 3 bedrooms. So we would comply with that. However, there is a guidance that's out there under the handbook that essentially says that there should be at least 10% of units that contain 3 bedrooms for projects like this. Discussion with the client, he can easily make one of the market units into a 3-bedroom. He only has to do is put a door in and a closet in the loft on one of on the floor plans. So he can easily comply with that, even though it doesn't change anything in the actual decision, but we did want to address that concern that had been expressed in the questions. I think the last one is the elimination of the garages. So as designed, 5 of these units have space for 1 car parked in front of the unit. 3 of them that have the longer driveways in front of them can park 2 cars there. Then there's 4 additional visitor parking spaces in the cul-de-sac. And I talked with the client, and he indicated that if and to the extent it's necessary, he can add parallel spaces across from one unit, the units closest to Moose Hill Road, and he can add additional spaces there to accommodate some additional parking. I think the sense from the client is that, it's a different market if it's a rental versus a home, and that the parking would be adequate for that purpose, and that it should be sufficient for that need. When you're renting apartments, you're the one that has to make sure that they are marketable, and he believes that they will still be marketable in that condition at that size. I think one of the other questions asked the last time, well, what were the rents that would be expected? And so what we did is we looked at 2 things. One, what were the rents that are approximately getting for similar size units in Medfield for the market, and we're getting between $2,300 and $2,500 for the market rents. Believe it or not, the maximum rent for units formulaically is higher than that. I think our last one that we looked at was up to $29, $31, $25, less the utilities paid by the tenants. So I can tell you that for this particular client, he does have affordable units in the other properties. He doesn't charge the maximum rent. he keeps it still at that other rate. The reason why those rents are higher is because frequently the subsidizing agency is paying 70% of the rent, and the occupant is only paying 30%. And so what happens is you have to go to whatever the local housing authority that administers that program to see whether or not what is the highest rent that they'll approve. And then after they do that, then you can set the rent based on that. And they'll only give you 70% of what they set as the highest rent. So the rents themselves are not going to be markedly different between the affordables, and the market is just who will ultimately pay for those rents. So with all that said, we really are come before you to ask that you determine this not to be a substantial modification, but merely a minor modification, and that we can then, subject to these conditions that I just mentioned, that we can then go forward with the project. And I'm available to answer any questions you have. And Mr. Borelli is here. He's the builder. He's the one has been in this business for a substantial period of time. And just from my perspective, he has substantially more experience than the previous applicant in building homes to a successful outcome for not only the community but for the residents.
Okay, thank you. So, do board members have questions?
Just a clarification for me. So it sounds like if we were to deem this a minor modification, you'd be comfortable with this new plan. But if we deem it a major modification, then we would probably go back to the plan you presented previously.
Well, as I said, we would prefer to find I mean, as in everything, time is money. Mm-hmm. And so if in fact we have to delay things, then it is going to cost us more, and we have to figure out what then is our best design. So we really don't like to, condition any request. We really would just prefer to see whether or not we can get this as a minor modification. And I think it does fit all those criteria for such a treatment.
With your new plan, do you know what the diameter of the cul-de-sac is?
The diameter is,
It hasn't changed from the existing plan we had previously.
Okay, so 108 feet is what it,
New fire truck with the bucket in front.
so that should all fit? That hasn't?
yes, that has not changed.
Okay. And you said something about additional parking parallel out near Moose Hill Road.
Okay, so
Yep.
I think it's essentially, I just want to make sure, is this where it would be?
Yeah, between the property line and the edge of pavement.
Yeah, so, I'm sorry.
Yeah, come on up.
Yeah, sorry about that. So it would be in this area. It would be across from these units. You could put the parallel parking spots across there.
Okay. Did everybody see that?
No, sorry, I'm trying to,
It's,
so where?
up here. You just put parallel spots
Okay.
up here. So then these units could come up there.
So John, I guess a question, statement, but also a question to Mr. Murphy. So the previous plan, it was 27 parking spaces, I think, essentially on that project. There was the garage units, and then there was 2 driveway spaces, as well as the 4 visitor spaces. Based upon what Mr. Murphy says, that number, I didn't see the other parking spaces, but 20, so 27 to 20.
Or what about a parallel?
Yeah, 20, so 6.
So
Six to eight.
So if in fact, depending on how you count them,
yeah.
so each of the units, 5 of the units would have 1 in front of it, that's 5. 3 of the units would have 2 in front of them, so that's another 6, that's 11. There's 4 in this visitor parking, so that would be 15. And you think that would be another 6?
I'd say 6 to 6.
6, so that would be 21.
It's 21, okay. I guess, I just bring that up just in terms of however, if the board makes a decision in terms of insubstantial or anything like that, I would just kind of want to reference what the parking count is, or what the new proposed parking count is. Because we don't have a plan with the proposed
Yeah.
parallel spaces. I want to make sure that
In fact, that,
we have a number with it.
I think what you're hearing tonight is that we like the plan with 8 units, which is what we approved. But you just pinned in, I pinned in a different location where these additional parking spots would be. Obviously, parking is going to be a concern on something like this based on the density. So is there is there a way that we can see what you're talking about for the additional parking?
The way I think you
Yeah.
could say it is that you could condition your determination that was a minor modification, that the revised plan have at least 21 parking spaces, and that it be in a plan acceptable to the building commissioner. So that way, there is a stopgap that the town has with somebody reviewing it other than you, and then obviously it would come back to you if somebody appealed that, right? So you would still have control over it if in fact that happens. So I think you can, if you're inclined to do so, approve it in that fashion, subject to those conditions.
Judy?
I just had some serious concerns over these parking spaces. What's the width of the road?
Though,
24. Okay, and 5 of the units have a spot for 1 car, and 3 have room for 2. Is that what you just said?
yes, I did.
Okay. I've had some experience in rentals with 2 bedrooms, and it's a rare tenant that only has 1 car. Rare. Even today, rare. People have 2 cars. And it looks to me like the folks that have the 1 car are going to have to park in these little new parallel spots on the front part of the property, or use the visitors. And what I never want to see is they park in front on a 24-foot wide road, that it would be a consistent, everyday parking situation. And I'd like to know what the fire department would feel about that, where they would have to.
Okay, so there is a condition, an existing permit says that there can be no parking on the roadway, and we're not seeking to change that
Okay.
condition.
Okay.
Secondly, I certainly understand that on certain properties, there are different experiences. But I can tell you that we have a property that has 24 units, and the parking for that unit is 1 in the garage and 1 in front of the garage. And you still have the people wanting to park on the street and not use the garage. So I don't mean to downplay how some people do appreciate a garage, but not all people do appreciate a garage.
Oh, I'm
But they,
aware
in
of that.
fact-
Yeah.
They in fact use it for purposes other than parking of a vehicle.
Mhm.
And especially because they, in effect, even in that 24 unit, they have a tandem situation, so they're always monkeying which one is in and which one is out. So I do believe that the 21 that we're proposing is a fair balance for 8 units, 21 spaces, is a fair balance without requiring us to have a garage in each of these units. Because the benefit certainly is, the size of the particular duplexes are all a little bit smaller. That's good for the septic system, it's good for the impervious area, and, you know, we're the ones that still have to make sure that we can market these to people who will pay those rents. So it is really kind of a self-regulating choice that we would appreciate if you would allow us to make that choice.
Well, I'm just saying, you know, 21 spaces for 8 units, I get the number. But you're then telling people that they must always, those visitor spaces will always be utilized by perhaps a tenant.
Well, I think you know, if you
they're not
look
gonna
at,
be purely
if you look
guest.
at parking studies, and you know, you guys have done this for a long time, but you'll recognize that everybody now has the concepts of shared parking, because there's a recognition that you don't need all those parking spaces all the time, that because of the changes of uses throughout the day, there's changes of uses. So those 4 visitor parking spaces are for when people are visiting. And we are, you know, kind of fully cognizant people, and we recognize that overnight, yes, there's going to be tenants parking there, but no one else would be using them, because it's unlikely that you're going to have visitors overnight in those spaces. So then, you know, do you want used spaces or unused spaces? Do you want too many parking spaces or the right number of parking spaces? And you know, with all due respect, I think this is a fair balance between those things, recognizing there's different uses at different times, because everybody's not going to be parking there if they have more of the pre-COVID work day and they go to their offices. And so that is going to, you know, make the parking adequate for the uses for which it's intended over the different parts of the day with the different preferences for people, whether or not it be the residents or the people visiting the residences.
Okay. And I just had one more question regarding the affordable units. Did you say that you could create a 3-bedroom affordable?
No, we said 3-bedroom market.
3-bedroom market?
Yes.
You would not consider a 3-bedroom affordable?
No.
Okay.
One thing, and as you said correctly, this board has dealt a lot with projects like this. The lofts. I've even seen it advertised on 40Bs where it was specifically a loft that was not to be a bedroom, was being said it could be a bedroom. What can you do to make sure that it's not being used as a bedroom?
Okay, so there's 2 things that can be done, and frequently I see boards of health becoming cognizant of these things. The Board of Health specifically can find and impose a condition, not unlike the condition that they impose for garbage grinders, that it cannot be used for more than 2 bedrooms. And they can require a deed restriction that specifically says it the same way that they can require a recording of a garbage grinder restriction. So the board, so the Board of Health has the power, in my experience, that's how they have dealt with this. And for this particular project with the Presby system, it is determined, bedroom count does determine the size of the unit, that size of the system. So that's why, you know, we can add 1 more bedroom to what we were originally envisioning and still not exceed the size of the Presby system that we'll need. But if in fact you want to bring attention to the condition for the Board of Health is and suggests to the Board of Health that the same way that you did on the garbage grinder restriction, I think there's in one of the waivers, there's a recognition of the garbage grinder restriction. You could put in there that the Board of Health can and should impose a deed restriction in connection with individual units. And then it may be in this town, I'm not sure, but different towns have different enforcement sometimes the building code official is the enforcement person, sometimes it's a zoning enforcement officer who's the enforcement officer. Either one of them could then enforce the deed restriction on behalf of the town. It's not in our interest to overload the system. Again, it has a self-regulating component.
If it becomes an enforcement issue, we've all lost at that point. So
Right,
that's, what we try to do is make it so that it doesn't become an enforcement issue.
Right, and I think the other thing that we have seen, and I think, I am aware of this, that other communities do the same thing, which is they have someone who is trolling the trolls, in effect, which trolls the ads to see whether or not there is any offensive type of misleading temptations that are put out there with respect to units. And we don't have any objection to any of those things, if in fact they become something that the board believes it needs to make sure that happens. It isn't in our interest at all to do anything other than the 8 units with the 7 twos. We prefer 8 twos, but 7 twos or 1 3, but.
Mr. Chairman, can
Yes.
I go back? I'm going to go back to the 3-bedroom, and I failed to mention, I'm on the Housing Authority, and I'm sure Mr. Broley is well aware, and you must be well aware of the desperate need for 3-bedroom units. And so I would much prefer, personally speaking from a Housing Authority director, that a 3-bedroom affordable would be much more preferred, in my opinion, than a 3-bedroom market.
Okay, the
That's-
only thing that I would say is that we have at different times sought approvals of, that you have the ability to, sometimes what the subsidizing agency allows you to do, it allows you to not only have, Unit 1 and Unit 4, for example, as your affordables. It allows you to shift them. So, and so that so long as you meet the 2, that you can shift them around. We wouldn't want to have the obligation to only have that. We would want to do it as, I'm being completely frank, we want to do it as market. However, if in fact we were able to get the ability to morph the designation, which sometimes we have been able to do. I personally know that those rents,
Well,
some of my
2,300 is the max for a 2-bedroom with the utilities part of that rent.
Yeah, I think the formula, at least the formula that I've seen, is higher than that, but I know that the 3-bedrooms are substantially higher than that.
Oh, they substantially higher, yeah.
And so because and then they get, and because they are then subsidized, then the property owner does have at least some incentive on the affordable because of that, but I don't think he wants it as a requirement.
Okay. I tried.
Okay, anything else?
Yeah, I got a question. The previous application had, you said back to the cul-de-sac, yours was the same as the last, but it showed a 44-foot radius? And
No, I think what I tried to say is the length of the road was approximately 400 feet.
Because yours shows a 40-foot radius, but you're saying your plan...
Radius of the cul-de-sac, old plan and new plan is the same.
Okay, but the one previously showed 44 foot, and yours shows 40 foot. Is that not typo? Okay. As long as that's, I figured, but I just wanted to ask.
We need to.
Okay.
There's things that need to be fixed.
One of the other questions I had was the basements. These renderings of the show a bulkhead, full basement. Okay, because the last one didn't have a bulkhead, and I don't remember if it had a full basement. I thought it was on a slab.
One of the conditions,
The HVAC HVAC equipment, hot water heater, storage, right? Instead of putting everything outside, everything going to the basement. There's plenty of storage,
Okay,
like 800 square feet of storage.
good, yeah. Only because I think we heard previously that sometimes garages are used for storage, and that's why we're not using garages, right? So, that being said also, the last thing was, these floor plans also show a study on the first floor with a doorway, is that correct? And then 2 bedrooms upstairs?
Yes.
Okay, and then also a loft? So potentially what you could call a 4-bedroom? Granted, I know that's an enforcement question, but I just wanted to ask the question.
Well, we all have lived in different houses, and we all know that sometimes people put beds in different rooms.
Okay.
So, so they have that potential, but that's not what they're designed for.
I would just say that from my standpoint, that if some of these details were a little bit better spelled out, I wouldn't feel as it being a substantial, because I think it does fit better, and I think it reduces the impervious, and I'm a fan of all that open space, and, but without all those details being spelled out, I would say it's still a substantial change to me. It's kind of giving a blank check, and I'm not really a fan of that.
Okay, so, as you probably can tell, I'm not comfortable. Usually what we've seen for minor modifications for a 40B, it's, the roadway is slightly different. It's a, some light fixtures are in a different location, and the board is like, yeah, that's minor. I think that what I'm hearing, and this is why I also feel, we'd like to see more detail in the plan as far as what you're actually proposing, the full plan, and I think things that I've already said concern the bit about the loft, but again, that can be an enforcement issue, but. Drew, tell me, do you feel you're not ready to say it's minor with the information that we have right now?
I think there's just too many unanswered questions. I mean, unless it's we can't recondition it, right? With voting on the fact of whether it's minor or substantial, and without having kind of a clear path as to this is exactly what we're proposing, and this drawing shows, it doesn't have typos or things like that, I would say that's, to me, a substantial change, because it could be altered differently than what we're, I guess, seeing here, right?
Yeah.
Can I just say one
Sure.
thing about the loft?
Just, would you come up to the microphone so everybody can hear you?
If you look at the loft, usually a bedroom, there's no door into the loft, and it's a galley railing
Yep.
on the stairs. So a bedroom would be exposed to people coming up and down the stairs. As far as a study on the first floor, the doors could be removed, so it's not considered a bedroom, no closets.
Okay.
But that's if you could, on that plan, it's kind of small, but it is a railing going open.
I saw the railing, and I guess my comment to the loft was because it was brought up earlier by your representation that a loft could be converted into a bedroom if you needed to create a 3-bedroom place, right?
Oh, yeah, so that open rail system would become a wall,
Right. Okay.
and you'd add a closet and a door.
Okay. Got it. Thank you very much for the explanation.
The other thing that I would say is, if you have the right to approve, I think lawyers will tell you, and I'm one of them, that gives you the right to condition. So you do have the ability, if you felt like you had enough information to have a longer list tonight to approve it, you could condition it, because as I said, the right to approve gives you the right to condition. Secondly, if in fact there are some specific things, because I know you have an 8.5 by 11, usually I come with a big, long, full-size set of things. If in fact what you're saying, that you need that information, and then perhaps you would look favorably on treating this as a minor modification, we would certainly
So-
waive the obligation to decide within a 20-day period.
And Drew, just to kind of add on that, if you remember with Summer Street, obviously that was a substantial modification, but the decision that was rendered, it wasn't a rewrite of the previous decision, it was an addendum to that decision. So if the board conditions a insubstantial modification, that's something that also needs to be part of the decision. Because if they go forward the process of, going through a pre-construction meeting and permitting, building commissioner is going to look at the plan and be like, this doesn't match what was approved. That's because the addendum needs to be part of that decision. So you could condition that.
Okay.
So for conditions right now, what we're talking about would be 21 parking spaces, and also 7 units would be 2 bedrooms, 1 would be 3 bedrooms. Lofts are not to be used as bedrooms. And the cul-de-sac is the same dimensions as the previous one, which was approved by the board. We need to make sure that's clear.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I would agree with
So those
those.
would be 3 conditions that we have right now. Does anybody have any other conditions that they would want to put?
With the shortening of the roadway, is there any change in the lighting plan or the landscaping plan or anything like that that would be, we should know about?
Everything would be the same. I mean, typically, the conditions we get for lighting in any zoning decision is that, they have to be, the dark sky compliant or whatever that term is, and that you can't have any lighting that, goes onto the other properties. So those would all apply. There wouldn't be any changes there.
We actually spent, at our last hearing for this, we talked a lot about the buffers, and I don't see any vegetated buffers on this plan. So does that mean that the vegetated buffers that were previously approved, that's what would be on this site?
You know what you're going to do on...
There's a fence, we could continue the fence, we could put a fence when you're looking outside the front door along that property, like 2 lawns. I'm not sure, I think that's moose cell also, that little spur.
Mhm.
Yeah. Put a fence there.
Okay.
For a buffer. I don't know if you could.
So, now, see, this is where we're running into a problem,
I
is,
understand. So
It-
if in fact what you feel like you need, if you feel like that what you need is that you need a updated landscape plan, and you feel like you need a floor plan that shows the 3-bedroom unit, and if you, I think the other thing that you,
the parking.
and we would show the location of the parking.
I think that would be the best way to move forward, because I know my board members here, the other board members, and I'm not sure that it would be viewed tonight as a,
Right, we want to give
minor
you, we want to
modification.
give you comfort that, that you're giving us a well-intentioned check and not a blank check. So we would, in fact, like I said, to the extent it's necessary for us to waive the 20-day period for you to act on a minor modification request, we would do so. And we would submit those 3 extra things, or if in fact other information gets to Patrick that he gives to me, we'll get those other things to you and be scheduled for a future meeting. And appreciate again the candor that you've given us tonight.
I think that's the best way to proceed. Does anybody have anything else that they think should be addressed in these?
The only thing I would say is just quickly looking at the last landscaping plan that was approved, it did show a row of trees, Norway maples, directly on that edge that you're talking about, adding parking spaces. So I would just try to maybe see if, since I'll be looking back at the old plans or whatever.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time tonight.
So when can we continue this until, that will give you time to make modifications to the plan?
March 5th is the next board meeting, so I don't know if that.
We can get somebody here on the 5th, right?
A month from now?
Okay.
Okay, so let's just do this right procedurally, because we have only 20 days to
Yeah, so I guess similar to before, I would probably follow up with Attorney Murphy just to confirm that if they're granting an extension beyond the 20-day period for the board to render a decision, and we could put that at March 6th or March
Let's
7th.
make, yeah, let's make it March 8th and continue until March, did you say,
The 5th would be the, yeah.
is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So does somebody want to make a motion to, do we need, is this a hearing?
It's not a hearing, it's, I mean, you could just motion to continue it, just to have it on the record, but
Okay.
it's not a hearing.
Okay. Motion to continue this until March 5th with a continuation of time at the request of the attorney, Mr. Murphy, until March 8th.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Drew, second by Judy. Any further discussion on this? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, so, okay. Okay. Moving along. So next we have case number 25-1, first case of the year, Wall Street Development Corporation, 3 Dupee Street, at 35 parcel 380, modification of the previously issued comprehensive permit pursuant to Mass General Laws 40B, Section 20 through 23 as amended. The proposed modification seeks to expand the project area by including property at 3 Dupee Street, map 35, parcel 380, and increasing the number of dwellings from 8 single-family dwellings to 12 single-family dwellings. So, good evening, Mr. Petrosi, how are you?
Thank you for having me tonight. As you've read into the record, if you recall, the project on Dupee Street was approved as a comprehensive permit. And since that time, one of the property owners has approached us to purchase their property. And so we are requesting an amendment to the project to up the number of units. Essentially, it's a net increase of 3 units because there's one existing home that's there will be removed. Just for purposes of recollection, this is the project that was approved. 8 detached single-family homes with a stormwater basin, cul-de-sac. The roadway, as previously approved, is not changing. Essentially, the property at 3 Dupee Street consists of this triangular-shaped property closer to the entrance of Dupee Street. We're essentially bringing the roadway by there anyways. There's no change or the dimensions or the technical aspects of the roadway itself. What essentially happens when we add the property of Dupee Street into the equation, you end up with 4 additional homes, of which one of these homes is already existing, so that would be removed from the property. But you end up with essentially 12 total homes, same roadway, same cul-de-sac, same amount of parking. The detention basin moves down towards the closer end of 27. And, but essentially from a technical standpoint and engineering standpoint, the roadway is the same. There's no additional impacts. We did also request that we are allowed to do a 20-foot rear yard setback.
I'm sorry, can you say that clearly?
A 20-foot rear yard setback instead of 30, which is the underlying zoning district. Primarily, according to the regulations, the decks are not allowed in the setback beyond 48 inches. So we view this from two points of view. One is that we would like to be able to offer a first floor master bedroom. And when we do that, we will, and again, from recalling what the neighbors had objections to on Victoria Circle, that they didn't want 2.5 story of buildings in their backyard. So we will be modifying the proposed plans to allow for maybe a lesser than 2.5 stories in the backyard. So there'll be like a sort of a vaulted ceiling that would be, and I'm happy to show those plans to you at the same time. But
Is that for the previously approved 8 units also?
well, no, the previously approved 8 units didn't have that accommodation in the plans that were part of the record. But we're making, as part of this proposed modification, we would modify our building plans to allow for a first floor master that would not include a 2-story space. It would be more like a vaulted. And I don't know but I don't want the board to make a decision on that particularly. I'd like to be able to show what we're thinking about, so that you have an idea and the neighbors have an idea about the level of, the reduced level of intrusion that might occur to their properties.
But are you talking about something that's going to affect the previously approved 8 units?
In terms of?
The height of the buildings and the setback?
No, the
Let's
height,
do
and the height and the setback won't change relative to the roadway and so on. What we're talking about is being able to bump out the back of each house to accommodate a first floor master. Because presently, these houses do not allow dimensionally area for a first floor master.
Right, so you want to get closer to the backyards on Victoria Circle?
Correct, correct. And that's something that I'd like the board to consider.
Okay.
But other than that, the roadway and the infrastructure is essentially the same. It's a repositioning of the detention basin, which, from a stormwater management standpoint, would have to be reviewed by your peer reviewer. And there really isn't any other impacts that are different than what was previously approved.
Okay. Before we open it up to the public, are there any board members that have questions on this?
Mr. Chair. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So Lou, for next meeting, can you provide us with architectural renderings of what you're
Yes,
proposing?
yes.
I'd also add, just because the history of the case, it was technically approved through HAC, could you provide the previous architectural renderings as well?
Well, I can compare what was previously approved, that
Yeah.
what was in the record.
Okay, because, yeah, we have the most up-to-date before
Right,
it was
exactly.
closed.
Yeah,
But-
no, we can do that.
Okay.
I think we did have a plan that didn't necessarily include a first floor master, but we did include a plan that had a vaulted, not as massive of rear elevation as what was on some of the other plans. So we want to try and make it as pleasing as possible to the neighbors on Victoria Circle, if we can.
Any other board members with questions right now?
Yeah, I guess for clarification purposes, the board denied the application originally, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, because it keeps being brought up that it was approved, but
Well-
it was approved after you appealed and then,
The state approved it.
correct, okay.
was-
Just for clerical issues.
Well, let's talk facts. Then.
Okay.
It was denied because of turning radius on 27. It wasn't denied for any other reason but that.
Right.
So let's call
When
it
we
the
talk
way it is.
about, and it's neither here nor there. Okay, thank you for the clarification. You said the roadway has no changes, is that correct?
That's correct.
The dimensions of the roadway?
The dimensions, the specifications, the
Okay, but
standards.
previously you had 8 units, and then there was one house in the lot that you acquired,
Correct.
so that would be 9 dwellings that are traveling on the roadway, is that correct, previously?
Correct. Well, there were two, one other additional home that's on the opposite side of the
Yeah,
street.
but that's not changing in your plan,
No,
correct?
that's not changing,
Okay.
correct.
But now you're talking about increasing it to 12 dwelling units traveling on Dupee Street permanently?
Net 11.
Your
units.
application?
Correct.
Okay. So the travel of the roadway is changing, not necessarily the dimensions.
You may have a couple extra vehicle trips per day.
Okay. And then the drainage basin is increasing in size, correct?
Well, I wouldn't, I'm not the engineer, so I don't know. I'd have to defer to the engineer to decide
How
that.
much open space have you increased with the additional 4 units being proposed?
None.
Okay. That's all the questions I have for now. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I guess just a comment that, given the roadway was a hot topic in the previous application, the fact that we're adding more density now to an already very tight roadway is certainly a concern.
So just so board members know, we are going to talk about peer review tonight, and we already have some information from Tetra Tech to do a peer review paid for by the applicant, but we'll get to that. That'll probably be the last thing we'll talk about tonight. Okay, are there any neighbors here that would like to comment on this? Please come on up and identify yourself for the record.
Hi, my name is Janice Salette. I live at 257 High Plain, which is the corner of High Plain and Dupee. And I very much oppose adding more homes in. The property is already going to be overburdened as it is. The traffic, I don't care about all the studies the applicant has had. I live it, and I've been there for over 30 years. And I'm concerned about the fact that we know we have the highest water table in the town, and by removing all the trees already that have been, it's going to make it worse. And my thought was that with the original 8 homes, that we got it down from 12, and now he's trying to get back up again, make them a little bit larger. Give some green space. There's no green space from the original. And there were only 2 guest parking spots. And I think there should be a minimum of 16 guest parking spots. It's at a cul-de-sac. It's the only way in and out. There's going to be delivery trucks. They say that the fire department said their trucks will turn around. Equipment changes as time goes by. I don't know how they really know that, because they keep changing how they're going to do things. And, you know, there's a lot to consider. And if children are there, there's no sidewalks on the street, and the more people you put in, this town does not need more homes. We certainly have our fill between the condos and homes that are being built. It's just being greedy instead of trying to see what would work best for the neighborhood. That's my feeling on it.
Okay.
And I know you guys have been fair in the past, and hopefully you can address these other issues, because we do know that the average home has a minimum of 2 cars, and as you brought up from the other one before, has no guarantee that people are going to use their garage for their car. And then when there's holidays and certain celebrations that people have, there's going to be a lot more traffic. So that's my stance on it, that there should stay at the 8 homes, have green space and more guest parking spaces.
Okay.
And because I am concerned about also the traffic. It's not easy getting out of the street these days. I thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Okay. Anybody else want to say something? Come on up, please.
Hi, I'm Katie Ivey. I live on Highland Street, which is the end of Summit. There's a walking path directly across from where this development is going in, right here. Since the trees have all been cut down, we had a rainstorm last week, and we typically get the water coming down Summit through that walkway path, literally right around in front of our house, and then it crosses Highland and ends up at a sewer. Is there any way to control the water with the grading, maybe across from 110 Summit, which is the end of the cul-de-sac here, is this, to put arborvitaes or more trees on that little piece of land that's the town's? Because right now, you can see, there's not one tree on, of course, because he's putting in homes, but this little town land right here, could we put in arborvitaes or something to help control the water table with all of the rainstorms?
I just have a question. Were trees cut on the town land? Is that cleared?
No,
Okay,
no.
So
So-
the natural buffer still is there from,
Yes.
okay.
I mean, I don't know where the markings are, but the trees are still there on the town land.
Right.
Is there any way to put in, to control the water coming down Summit onto the pathway? Maybe put in some arborvitaes here to soak up some of that water?
So-
It's awful.
So, we can't do anything on the town land? I think that's a question you can ask.
I have to come back to you on that one.
Yeah, you can talk to Patrick to find out who to find, but that's not something the zoning board can do. But is water flowing from, I thought most of the water from the site was flowing towards Route 27, High Plain Street. So,
It goes both ways. It's, the last rainstorm, I mean, water's always been an issue with the control, but since that has been cut down on Halloween, we had a rainstorm last week. I should have taken a video of it. It was ridiculous. The water, it was like a river. And then my second question is, the homes that are going to have the primaries on the first floor, is that an additional bedroom? Or is that still the same amount of bedrooms?
we can ask the applicant.
Same amount of bedrooms.
Just taking it from a different floor?
Right.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Petrosi, is this, I know I saw erosion wattles placed on the property down towards Route 27, but is there anything on the, I guess it would be the west end?
We have erosion controls around the whole perimeter of the property, so I'm not familiar with the water issues that this neighbor was describing, but, you know, the way the town has it set up, they've made this channel to go in the direction, they know it's a problem. They have a channel at the end of Summit Avenue that the water travels down this sort of like a spillway, and that's where the water goes. And I don't want to go back into the history of how we proposed to improve that early on, before it got to the zoning board, but there's nothing that's coming off of our site that is contributing to that water at this point. And then whatever we do is going to, I don't have the plans here but what we take all of the water from our site and we put it into the detention basin through a swale along the back of the homes. So there's nothing that we are contributing to this problem on Summit Avenue. The problem on Summit Avenue is that it all pitches in that direction, and there's no catch basins and there's no stormwater control, so it is what it is. When it rains hard, it's going to rain hard and it's going to look like a river.
Okay.
So nothing we can do about that. Unless they let us cut through and put a cul-de-sac there and capture some water and put it in a different location, then we could do something. But the town was not receptive to that idea early on in the process.
Okay. Okay.
So, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just, I know there's a landscape plan on sheet 6, and there's a row of arborvitaes that separates the property from Victoria. Could the applicant also look at arborvitaes on the back of units 11 and 12?
Yeah, the new proposed units?
So, you know, I don't know what the arborvitaes have to do with stormwater management. It doesn't really have anything to do with stormwater management. Arborvitaes are a method for creating a buffer between properties, and creating some green space, as Drew would call it, but it's not a stormwater management practice to put trees in to control water. The water is going to go where the surface allows it to go. And these lots all drain in this direction, so.
Okay. But was your question about a
I mean,
vegetated buffer, or?
More about vegetated buffer, because I mean, to the point of Mr. Petrosi with
Why
the
am
stormwater,
I going
that's,
to put arborvitae's against
I don't
the
think,
town's property that's
that,
heavily treed?
where's 11 and 12? You just referenced 11.
those are 11 and 12. It
On
was
the
just
end? Okay.
Where? Where's 11 and 12?
The two ones at the end of the
Right
cul-de-sac.
here?
Yeah.
But why would I put plantings there when you have 75 feet of plantings?
Just increasing the buffer.
Excuse me?
Just increasing the buffer.
Listen, the town has those properties. They're heavily treed.
Okay.
I wouldn't be proposing to put
Thank you.
plantings to buffer an open lot that is there. Serves no purpose. If there was a neighbor there, then we'd be interested in doing that, but there is no neighbors there.
There's a small section, I don't know how many feet, that's the town property that does have sparse trees, I wouldn't say dense. Next to that, though, it's completely clear from our neighbor's backyard onto the Victoria backyards, because it's at an angle, that circular at the end. Arborvitae's would be a great form of buffer, added buffer, privacy, and envisioning what is now a very crowded street with people cutting through that sparse town land over to Summit.
Okay.
Just so, I don't think she understands that. We are proposing and planting arborvitae's along the property lines of Victoria.
I'm talking about Summit.
Okay.
Summit and Highland.
Summit is the town owns that property, and we're not proposing to do anything there for the town.
Oh, I know, and I'm asking,
Okay.
could you? Because right now, it's not dense, it's sparse. You can see right through.
That's
You can go look yourself.
All right.
So,
I'm going to defer that for now.
we're going to, hold on. One of the things, if you're going to talk, you have to come up to the microphone. No problem, you know. So, we've got more time to go over, you know, now that the trees are all gone, to see what's the best for a vegetated buffer in the area. So this isn't the end of it tonight. So this is the introduction of the new project. We're going to talk about peer review tonight, and we can, you know, if you want more buffer, we've already conditioned a lot of buffer for the people on Victoria Circle, but if it makes sense to have some additional, we can talk about that with the applicant.
Well, as Drew would say, you denied the project, and I agreed to continue with the buffer as we proposed it. So let's give us a little bit of credit, Drew.
What?
I do have another question. So is the comment about the runoff, is it runoff from your property?
No.
Okay.
Okay. Come on up, yep.
I know that arborvitae don't do anything for the water absorption. It's willow trees, and that's what used to be on the properties around, on my property and all the properties around. So they're the ones that soak up the water, and that's why you always see them by bodies of water. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay,
Thank
thank you for that explanation. Okay, come on up.
Jim Doyle, 12 Victoria Circle. I think the deck issue being so close, he wants a variance, I believe, to bring him closer to Victoria Circle. Somebody already mentioned about open space and about the water runoff. I don't know how that swale he has is going to work. But if we're talking about trees sucking up water, I had an 80-foot oak that the owner had his crew cut down on my property. So there's one tree that won't be sucking up any water that's coming over to Victoria Circle.
So, hold on.
Yep.
You had a tree on your property,
Yep,
and
80-foot oak.
it was taken down accidentally?
Nope,
Oh, you wanted it taken down?
nope. There was his property stake is about 3 feet from the tree. And he told his crew to cut it down, and he told me, because the line of arborvitae's could go right along there. But the arborvitae's he's putting in would have been on my property, not on his property. So I don't know whether he thought it would look better if it was straight or at an angle, but that's what he told me. He took the tree down, so the arborvitae's could come through.
So somebody went on your property and cut one of your trees?
Yep.
Huh. I think, did you have a conversation with Mr. Petrosi?
Pardon?
Did you talk to Mr. Petrosi about this?
I can't talk to him about it anymore.
Okay.
It's out of my hands.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
I have a question for that. Excuse me, sir?
Sorry.
Yeah, is there silt fence and hay bales that delineate your property from the?
There what?
Is there a silt fence or hay bales or any sort of erosion control delineating your property from the applicant's property? Said where your tree, the tree that you're.
Well, I haven't been out there since, it's behind my fence. I have a
Okay.
fence put up, and then my property goes about 6 feet behind it and about 15 feet at the other end.
Okay.
But I haven't been out there because of the weather, so I don't know what's been going on with the rain. So I don't know.
Thank you.
Because they wanted to pull the stump out, but I told them they had to leave it there till this is a done deal.
Okay, thank you.
So Drew, just to comment on that, because obviously the site has been a clear cut, Mr. Petrosi started the pre-construction process. I know we had a conversation with myself, engineering, building, conservation, and that was one of the comments, is to make sure that stormwater protection went out.
Yeah, I
And
mean, it's part of
Mr.
the-
Petrosi has taken care of that.
It's part of the plan set along with the sediment control. When you enter the site, chain link fence is supposed to be installed, so yeah, checking that out.
I just wanted to let you know that does not exist on the town property to do, what's the street? Dupee.
Okay, thank
There's
you.
no control.
Okay. Has Conservation been working with him on this? Have they been out to see the site?
I mean, I couldn't speak for Landis, but I'm pretty sure she has. This was prior to Christmas, so I think this was in the fall,
Okay.
when we first had our discussions about it.
Yeah.
Judy's your hand up.
Yeah.
Judy Cronroy, Precinct 7. I see a list of waivers here. Is this an original list from the prior decision, and then it's been revised? And if so, what's changed?
Yep. Mr. Petrosi, do you want to come up and walk us through these, the waivers?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, the only change in the waivers was the setback, the rear yard setback from 30 feet to 20 feet. I believe the rest of the waivers are pretty much as approved.
Okay, well, first one, there is a waiver for, I'm just looking, for 12, it's now 12 buildings, and are they going to have 6,000 square feet, with less than 6,000 square feet lots?
Whatever those numbers are, those are correct.
Okay. So the only,
The only substantive change in the waivers is from 30 feet setback, rear yard setback to 20.
okay. And I just want to be clear, because the previously approved 8 units did not need that waiver.
Correct.
Now, does,
We
is
didn't,
it,
well, we didn't ask for the waiver. It's not that we didn't need it, we didn't ask for it.
okay, you didn't ask for it.
But in all fairness, it became apparent after that the building inspector, those decks that are shown on the plan would be non-compliant with that rear yard setback because they would be in the 30 feet, in the 30 foot, and they would not be permitted. So in hindsight, we should have asked for that waiver at the beginning.
Okay. So now you're asking for a waiver for that for, it looks like 10 or is it for all 12 of the units?
No, these two units here aren't considered, it's not considered rear yard. But these are considered rear yard, everything in orange and red.
Okay. So even
10
things that we've already approved, or was approved by the state, actually, that is now, you want another shot at that to reduce the setback.
Well, that's what the modification is requesting.
Well, actually, the modification is more for the additional property and the additional units. Because one of the things that we asked you about last time, you were very clear, you were saying, it doesn't involve anything that we've already approved.
Well, let me put it this way. If I had come in just for the modification on the setback, that would have been considered an insubstantial change. So,
No, it wouldn't have.
well,
You might have considered it that.
well, I don't want to get into the semantics of what our rights are under that scenario, but I think the Housing Appeals Committee probably would have considered it insubstantial. But in any case, we asked for 2 things as part of this modification. One is to increase the number of units from 8 to 12 because we added additional property. And the second one would be to allow us to encroach within 20 feet of the rear yard of the properties. Other than that, those are the 2 changes that the board has to review. All of the other issues related to the prior permit that's been issued are not reviewable under this process.
So John, I'm curious, I just brought up, what was the last plan that the board had looked at prior to the denial? The rear yard setback that was given was 30 feet, but it was from the edge of the home, whereas what Mr. Petrosi is providing is from the deck. So I think that's kind of where that should have probably been caught last time.
Caught by the applicant.
Caught by, well, us too. I mean, that should have,
Because he didn't ask for that waiver, so it was very important that we were trying to protect the neighbors on Victoria Circle. So they were getting a setback that was still within the town zoning bylaws. Now he's asking for something less than that. So somebody can have a deck that's going to be looking into their backyard. So it does make a difference. Okay. So nothing else on the front porches, all that's going to remain the same within the waiver for the front of the buildings?
Whatever those waivers are, those are the waivers that are in place, those are the plans that have been approved and are in place.
Okay. Ms. Conroy?
Just to be clear, it was mentioned earlier to create a master bedroom, take the decks off, but then now bring the actual building further into the setback? Did I hear that correctly?
I don't know, because we haven't seen
Any plans?
definitive
Okay,
plan.
so we can talk about that next time. And is the 10-foot between buildings, was that something that was in the original 10 feet? So that's
10
not, and that was granted?
That was
it's 11.
granted by the state.
Granted by the... Oh, I got it right here. Just going by your application. Okay, so I guess we need to talk about that setback a little more. I would have a concern is for the neighbors to have building actually closer. I'm not crazy about decks either, because that's activity outside beyond inside activity. But I think that's something as far as the dimensional request, I think we need to look at that. Okay?
Sure. Sure.
Thanks.
Yep.
I just wanted to add for any of the newer board members from the last time, that the only egress and access to my driveway is through Dupee Street, although my house is on the corner of High Plain and Dupee. My garage is actually on Dupee Street, so I'm stuck if, there's all that extra traffic that's going to be coming down anyway. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Jim Doyle, Victoria Circle. I forgot to mention, I'm against the extra 4 houses, and I'm against the setback. If he's wants the setback, is he adding on to the house, or is he just pushing all the houses back? Where is the setback coming from?
So, okay, we can ask Mr. Petrosi that.
Okay.
So, Mr. Petrosi, this request for the 10-foot setback, is that now, what is going to be the setback of the actual buildings?
Well, depending on the design, the rear yard will be 20 feet instead of 30. So some of these homes, depending on the buyer, if they want something on the first floor, these homes would be extended out so that the maximum extent of the building would be no closer than 20 feet to the rear property line.
And before it was staying within the zoning of 30 feet?
Outside of the decks.
Right.
So now, I mean, you could argue that, yeah, we didn't request it, but if it's shown, I don't want to, if it's shown on the plan and the plan got approved the way it is, then technically speaking, we could build the decks. I'm not going to argue that point at this point, but technically speaking, we would be entitled to build those decks as it's shown on the plan.
So I guess just to expand, I'm just looking at the previous plan. So there was a waiver sought by Mr. Petrosi. It was for the previous number 7, and I think on the new plan it's number 11, to be 19 feet within the rear setback. That was one of those requests, but I think it's easier just to show you, John. I think he incorrectly gave the setback as 30 feet, but the deck was within the 20 feet. So he's probably requesting it now. But the plan previous doesn't look like it's changing.
Okay. I think the plan is changing because he just said that there could be this master bedroom that's going to be closer now.
Yeah,
You're right. They could be closer. But that's why we officially asked for that waiver. So it's not really a big deal.
Well, it is a big deal if you live on Victoria Circle.
Well, again, you haven't seen and talked to some of the people that I've talked to, and so we're going to try and accommodate some of those concerns that they have.
Okay. Anybody have anything else? Because, yeah, come on up.
Tyler Houle, I live at 20 Victoria. This one right here. I just want to make sure I understand. So previously it was from the house to the property line 30 feet?
Correct.
And now the waiver is asking for from the house to the property line 20 feet. So then a deck is another...
Why don't you talk?
A deck is another, how many feet typically? I don't know how long decks are. So if it's 20 feet from the house to the property line, and then the deck adds another 10 or so when there's the 3-foot swale and the arborvitaes, or I think we asked for green giants, but I'm just trying to make sense of all the things that are in there and if that is enough space there. I don't quite understand because I don't see the plans. And I have spoken with Mr. Petrosi. My request was, I'd prefer not like a 3-story house behind my house. 3-story, I'm including the walkout basement that was proposed. No, obviously I would love for not 10 feet closer to my house as well. I don't know if there's an option C we're formally stuck with option A and B here. One other question, the decks, would those be at the main level? And then so where the stairs, where do those go? Without those, it's hard for me to understand what's going on back there.
Yep, and we don't have that shown on the plan at this point, but hopefully the next plan will show that.
Last question, procedurally, how does this all work with, I'm just trying to understand next steps.
So tonight's the first night that we've had a look at this, and the neighbors have had an official look at it in the public hearing. We're also going to vote on a peer review to look at the engineering of pretty much the retention basin and any of the additional information for the 4 additional units on the property. And then we'll come back at a later date, which we'll know tonight. We'll decide when we're going to come again here. And hopefully at that point, Mr. Petrosi will have more detailed plans that show the setbacks and the decks, and if there's stairs coming off the decks, which I think is a good question, how that's all going to fit in this very condensed area.
Okay, appreciate it.
Okay. Yes.
Good folks, Matt Nardi from Summit Ave. Mr. Lee, you just used the terminology condensed area. I'm actually surprised there's not more folks here from Sybil Street, which backs up to that. But if 8 units were discussed previously, wouldn't 12 just make it worse? You yourself just said condensed. That's already a tight area. Putting 4 more units in there, once the units are up, they're up. The residents have to deal with it. So whatever problems ensue, they ensue. So developer's made his money, and I've heard language here tonight that sounds arrogant to me, to be honest with you, and including you folks owing him gratitude. I don't buy all that, but I live in the neighborhood. Having seen the woods taken down, wasn't the best thing to see. Can only change so much, but having 12 in there is going to be way too much now, so just a general consensus. Again, I thought there'd be more people here, because I talk with a lot of the elderly residents on Summit, people that frequent that neighborhood. They may not have even been aware of tonight's meeting, hence their absence, but the 12 is not an accepted item in that neighborhood, just a general feeling, just so you know.
Oh,
so I appreciate the board's
We understand that, but do you also understand what the zoning board's up against on this? This is a rule that's imposed by the state of Massachusetts about affordable housing.
The 40B.
40B, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so
Correct.
that's what, he wouldn't be allowed to build this if it wasn't affordable housing. That's because
so
the
it could not
density
have
of it.
stopped at just the 8 units? The 12 has to meet a certain requirement, even in that tight constraint of the
Yeah,
neighborhood?
It can't be, the only thing that we can look at is it dangerous to public health and safety on these things. And just to give everybody here in the audience, and you, sir, some background, this board voted against this project, and it was appealed by Mr. Petrosi. It went to the state, and the state said they approved the project and sent it back to us, and we then we filed it with the town clerk and specifically said, we're filing this with the town clerk, but we did not vote to approve this because we had concerns about it.
None of those folks from the state live in the neighborhood, I assume, right?
I don't know where they live.
Yeah, okay. We can probably make that deduction, yeah.
So, I hope you understand, the background of this development. And now he's here under the permit that was approved by the state and saying that he wants to have a modification to that. So that's what we're dealing with. So as I've said at many of these 40B hearings, if you don't like this, talk to your state representative and your state senator. They're the ones that you need to talk to about these projects.
Sure, appreciate the suggestion. Okay, thanks very much for your attention to it.
Okay.
this comes back with more detailed plans about the primary being on the first floor, it's not going to increase the number of bedrooms or the size of the existing homes? Because now that I heard the conversation about that Moose Hill with parking, this street is already so narrow. I'm worried about cars and everything on the street as well.
So, as far as,
He's adding a, I don't know what the term is, I haven't seen the plans.
Right.
There's now going to be a first floor primary. There never was. So does that increase the number of bedrooms or the size of the house?
so he was approved for a number of units on this property. That's what the approval was for. If he wants to have it closer to the property lines, that's why he has to be back here. He could have built, whatever he want, with the approval he has, he could build whatever he wants as far as the number of bedrooms in that.
Even with the street size the way it is?
Well, whatever
It's so narrow and there's no really turnaround for a fire truck.
No, we spent a lot of time on that.
I remember.
That meets the turnaround requirements for the fire equipment that the town has.
It does?
It does.
Okay.
The issue that this board had was leaving the site, a emergency vehicle either coming in or leaving would cross the yellow line on Route 27, which we said was unsafe at any point, and it wouldn't be allowed for a conventional subdivision, and we didn't see why an affordable subdivision should put people at risk for something like this. And the state denied us. They overrode
Well,
us.
the state, you guys denied this.
We
The
denied
state
it.
approved it.
And the state approved it.
Are we just here for motions again? Is this going to go back to the state and they're going to approve this?
I don't know. We'll see.
Thank
The
you.
goal for a 40B is to get something that is acceptable to as many people as possible. That's what we're trying to do here.
Is this an acre of land? Is it an acre total?
It's 1.2.
Oh, it is?
1.2.
Because I have one house on an acre, and I can't imagine 12. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else on this? Okay, Mr. Petrosi, let's talk about peer review.
Sure, why not?
Good. I believe you've already seen the letter from Tetra Tech.
Yeah, I've reviewed it. It seems a little bit overbroad for what is necessary for the amendment. So, how do you want to handle it?
Well, as you know, and you have been the recipient of funds coming back if the funds are not spent, but I think the best way to move forward tonight is for you to agree to pay the peer review for Tetra Tech of $9,360, and we can get Tetra Tech, and I believe it would be Mr. Sean Reardon, professional engineer, looking at the changes on your plan.
Well, as much as I would like to cooperate, the requirements under the modification of the comprehensive permit is only to review those items which are requested to be modified. So in my review of this proposal, it's, I would say A and B. I don't think there's any need to review water demand and wastewater generated from the project. It's already been determined.
You're adding four new units, so,
It's town sewer.
okay.
So I'm perfectly willing, and traffic, to be quite honest with you, under your own rules and regulations, this project would be exempt from a traffic study. So I'm not quite sure why we're being required to do that. So I'm perfectly happy paying for A and B, plus if you want them to come to a few meetings and waste my money, another $3,000 for that. So between A and B and task 3, I'm happy to write a check, and you can review the essential aspects of the modification.
So, Mr. Petrosi, traffic review, we recognize that any children that live here will be walking to either Old Post Road School or the middle school, because it's within walking distance of those two schools. And there's no sidewalks on this site, so I think it is appropriate that we look at the traffic for this, and particularly where you're increasing by 1/3 the amount of units on the property.
Okay. What else?
That's it. That's the only one you didn't want, so.
Well, no, I'm not paying for sewer and water and demand and all of that stuff. This has already been determined previously.
Water.
It's not
We
something that
want
is,
somebody to look at the water consumption because you're adding 4 more units.
I'm not doing it.
Okay.
So I'll gladly write a check for the stuff that's being
So, Mr.
requested
Petrosi,
modification.
we've actually been through this with you before.
Exactly, and you continue to take abuses with the peer review.
We are not.
You are.
Okay.
You must read the statute, and you must read the regulations under the Chapter 40B. The modification is for 2 things. Number of units from 8 to 12,
Will those number of units increase the amount of water use on this?
doubtful.
50%? 50% size of the development increase?
So, I mean, that just, I don't even know what to say.
To build the project that you got approved then, if you don't want to pay for it.
Excuse me?
Build the project you have approved right now if you don't
Well,
want to pay for it.
I'll be building this while you guys are deliberating this, and if you don't approve it, then we have options. So I'm not concerned about that, I'm just concerned about how you spend my money. If you abuse the process, that's not fair to the applicant, which is me.
We're not abusing the process.
No, you think this is, you know,
This change affects everything listed in this.
it doesn't, I disagree with you, I'm sorry. Okay, so, we can do this the easy way, or we can do it the hard way. I
Okay.
mean, as it is now, he's got $3,000 in here to come to 2 meetings. Think you need him for $3,000 to come to a meeting and sit here?
Mr. Petrosi, you have received money back from peer reviews that wasn't spent. We are not wasting your money, and we're sure not going to waste our time.
But if you're not telling him not to review a specific item, he's gonna spend the money. So.
We've asked him to review the traffic, and so,
Specifically, let's talk about the traffic, for example, because you brought up how you denied the project because we crossed over the yellow line on 27 by a foot.
on a state highway, yeah.
By a foot, okay?
No, it was more than that.
By a foot. So, tell me what specifically you want the traffic peer reviewer to review. What is
Peer
it?
reviewer. He's going to review the traffic on this.
What is it?
gonna
Additional number of trips? You made
Additional traffic.
sidewalks, we're not putting sidewalks in, so that's not part of the process. So what exactly are you gonna ask him to review?
Anything that
He doesn't even
relates to
say
traffic.
it. And then he doesn't even say what he's reviewing, and then he's gonna write a letter for $700. So, if you can.
So, we've asked for the scope of the peer review. It deals with the modifications. Do you want to pay this, or we can continue the case where we'll come back and decide what we're going to do because we didn't get the peer review money?
Well, we're gonna continue, obviously, because you're not ready to approve it right now.
We need more plans. Okay.
I don't understand why you can't ask him to review the stormwater management. What is the problem with that? Why do you need all the money at once? He's not gonna review all of the stuff at once. Why does he need all the money at once?
John, I guess I could ask Sean to relook at it if that is what the board wants. But I mean,
We asked him for a scope. Fine, if,
I asked Patrick to go back to Tetra Tech because we want the same peer reviewer. But the things that need to be reviewed are the items related to the modifications, not the entire project. You seem to be approaching this as if it's the entire project, that you get another bite at the apple for the entire project. You don't.
no. just as you don't have another bite at the apple, but you've asked for change in the setbacks on the property, so anything that relates to that, we can address that.
The regulations allow me to come back,
Yes.
and they allow you to review those items that I've requested a modification for. I'm suggesting that we take this in a step-by-step process, since you're not thinking about resolving this anytime soon, that we have them review the stormwater management, because that's one of the key things, and the technical aspects of the plan, which are A and B. If it becomes necessary, I'm happy to have him review traffic if it becomes necessary. But I don't want him spreading out his entire staff, reviewing things that are insignificant to what we consider to be the major portions of the amendment, which are engineering and stormwater. And I think you would agree with me that those issues are more of a priority than whether or not there's 4 extra cars on the street.
It's all a priority.
Excuse me?
It's all a priority. It's not one thing that's more important. Patrick put together this request. We have it. Of all things I thought tonight that were going to go smoothly, I was like, okay, we'll get the peer review moving. But we're not going to get the peer review moving tonight. So.
Thought that was going to
The
go.
traffic's a lot different.
$9,000?
When this last study was done, I'm sure the traffic has changed quite a bit. In 27, it's definitely picked up. And I don't know how increasing a project by 50% doesn't affect traffic and water.
Okay. Okay. So, what's available for a continuation?
March 5th.
What is it?
March 5th.
March 5th, okay. You want to continue until March 5th?
Sure, why not?
Okay. And it's a shame that we won't have peer review for that, because you don't want to pay it. Okay, so does anybody have any questions or comments from the audience? So what we're going to do is we're going to continue this until March 5th. Come on up, Judy.
Just have a quick procedural question to help the folks out. Without the peer review, which is a step in the process, and he's refusing to do it, what other steps could you take tonight other than giving him an extension?
Oh, he still needs time for this, so we still need to have the plans that show, the new proposed buildings that would be closer to the houses. So he has to come back with, a more definitive plan.
Okay, so deciding over $635 for traffic study, that's his prerogative, no peer review.
Well,
Okay, just want to
yeah, it's.
make it clear that it's, once again, no peer review. Okay, thank you.
I mean, there will be a peer review, but at some point, or maybe we'll see what happens. I think,
So-
I don't want to get to the point where we deny this tonight because he won't pay for the peer review.
Well, I guess that was my question, John. Excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
John's fine.
Interrupting Patrick. It's like fish or cut bait. Don't want to follow the rules. You obviously just said you could take a vote tonight and deny the project. That's putting feet to the fire.
Mm-hmm.
He's putting feet to the fire. So whose feet are going to get burned first?
Yeah,
So I just kind of want to go back to when it's a modification, obviously, what you're looking at is what the proposed change is, but I think George, town council has also mentioned before, how does it also impact the overall project? The bulk of the review is obviously, where you're moving the detention base and you're adding 4 units, how does that impact the site overall? The board does have its own rules and regulations for 40Bs. I think you guys enacted it in 2019. Yep. A traffic impact report is usually applicable when you have 20 more units. And this is 12. So I don't know if that could be scaled down or revised, but that's just one thing I noticed within the rules and regs that we have.
So,
but obviously, if it impacts the site overall, Tetra Tech they had a reason for adding that.
So we can continue this, and we'll be back to discuss peer review next time. and any, and the modified plans that show the actual setbacks from the property line. Because right now, you're just asking for a waiver, but it's not showing where you need it on the different houses.
And, Mr. Chairman, just one more question. Regarding the waivers, when would you be voting on the two waiver changes? Because if you decide to vote that you're not going to even allow the waiver for the encroachment into the rear setback, then it's a whole design change. So are you going to wait to vote the waiver?
We don't vote on the waivers until we're much further into the process, where we see whether the waivers are necessary.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Anybody have anything else? Okay.
John?
Yeah.
How does this affect timing overall on this? I mean, are we under the gun to?
What do we have? We have
So it's
180 days?
Yep, it's same as if it was a new hearing for a 40B, so 180
Yeah,
days.
so we're not close to running out of time at this point, but.
But if we have more delays.
Right, if the applicant
Right,
chooses that.
okay.
So what we'll do is we'll continue until March 5th, 7 PM here at Town Hall. Does somebody want to make a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Moved by Dave,
Second.
second by Tim. Any further discussion on continuing? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, so carried. Okay. So we'll be back here on March 5th for more of this. Okay. Next thing we had on the agenda is some minutes. So, just. Okay, so I see that you made the corrections that I requested. Did anybody have anything else for the minutes? Judy, do you want to come back? This is for the minutes of December 16th. Thank you for making those corrections. Anybody else have anything? Does somebody want to make a motion to approve the minutes of December 16th?
Motion to accept?
What?
Motion to accept?
Okay, motion by Tim to approve. Second by Mark. Any further discussion on those minutes? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained, so carried. Okay. We also have minutes from, it must have been our last meeting, January 27th.
Last week.
Last week, yeah.
Feels like a month ago.
Busy.
Anybody have anything on that? Okay. All those in favor of the minutes of January 27th, please say aye. Aye. Oh, sorry, yeah. Motion to accept.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Drew, second by Judy. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained, so carried. Okay. Does anybody have anything else? Do you have any updates for us?
Summer Street's moving along. If we're talking about updates in terms of 40Bs, I know they've been doing it under construction right now for a little while. I think everything has been going except the 90-unit building, so that's progressing. Gilmore's kind of silent there. The last time we had spoke to the developer, I think realistically maybe pre-construction discussions in the fall of this year. I think I did forward everybody in terms of where our SHI numbers are at right now. What happens is every other year there's a biannual update you need to provide the state in terms of where the
But
status is.
we're in safe harbor right now.
We are right now, yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, right. Owner's been so quiet.
So that means we have no more, for now.
For now.
40Bs coming in.
No.
For 2 months.
Unless someone else wants to modify their 40B.
Anything else on that? Anything else?
No, nothing really else in terms of ongoing projects.
Is there anything else with the appeal,
Which appeal?
County Street?
County Street?
Oh.
Oh, no, I haven't.
No,
heard.
honestly, haven't heard anything. We actually one thing we did get was just a records request on previous board decisions regarding permits under section 12. That's typical, I think, prior to the lead up of the next phase of anything with litigation. They're just doing their due diligence to see what the board's approved. But in terms of actual communication regarding cases or a council meeting before going to court, having nothing. So.
Okay. Okay, somebody want to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Judy, second by Mark. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, good night, everybody.
Good night.